I'll turn it off.
Question was why the age from 15 to 35?
There was a lot of discussion by the model committee. I wasn't there at the time when they developed it, but they really wanted to work with younger adults who were just starting their life out and had a long life to live. And they wanted the program to focus on an age group that would be compatible living in a communal setting together. We see each residence roughly being 19 to 25, 25 to 30, and 30 to 45. Ideally, we'll break the residents up by age group. Each age group is developmentally a little bit different, and we felt that going farther would just bring in other developmental issues of middle-aged adults, and that we wanted to keep it at younger adults. And we just couldn't serve everybody, so there had to be a cutoff.
If I could add something to that as well. The studies have shown that the existing funding, especially in this program, there's a real gap in the systems of business. There is some funding for a younger population and older than our age group that we're targeting. There is some funding, but there is a real gap in the system to service that age group.
I was just going to add, as I mentioned in what I said, there are different issues for people who come out of serious mental illness in the late teens, early or mid to late teens, and transition from the child's mental health system into the adult mental health system. When you're 18 and you've spent the last 5 or 6 years trying to just be, there are skills, life skills that you don't learn. And so if you get dumped into an adult program with people who didn't have that kind of history, who maybe developed symptoms later in their development, they've got skills that you don't have. And so this particular age group, I think, is at particular risk. I was, because you're missing bits. There's sort of bits of you are very mature, but very many parts of you didn't get a chance to grow up properly. And so I think this particular age group has specific needs and different needs from either children or adults. So I think that's another reason that this particular age group is targeted by the model at Ellie's Place.
Thank you. We have a question here.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you all for being here and the work you're doing. It's certainly, in my opinion, very badly needed. My question is twofold, actually. One, we focused on one particular mental disorder tonight, but I'm assuming that Ellie's Place will be open to anyone with a serious mental illness, for example, schizophrenia as being one. So I'm interested as to whether that is the case. The second question I have, I didn't hear anything, well, I did hear during Dr. Levitt's piece about drug therapy, of course, but in the description of Ellie's Place, I didn't hear anything about drug therapy. I'm assuming it's a cornerstone to the program, but I'm interested in confirming that and thoughts around that, and as to whether there's even thoughts of having programs that aren't as much drug-based, because, again, I heard your story with respects to the lithium effect, and I congratulate you on not being bitter. You've done a tremendous job, and I really have a lot of admiration for you. But obviously, drugs have impacts as well, so I'm kind of interested in those questions.
Thank you for your questions. First of all, yes, Ellie's Place will be open to a range of mood disorders, not just bipolar disorder. We just wanted to focus on one particular as an education for tonight. We will have social workers, we're going to have a psychologist, and we will have a consulting psychiatrist. Specifically, one of the main reasons is for medications. When we're dealing with young adults with serious mental illness, many, if not most of them, will be on some sort of medication. That's just a reality. So yes, we will have a consulting psychiatrist that will be overseeing the medications, for sure.
Okay, we have a question here.
My question is regarding treatment modalities. You presented lots of options at the first slides, I'm wondering how many are in use in Ontario and in Canada. The magnetic, the brain implants, are we using them? Are they still considered experimental? And I know from a lot of the research, I mean, I do teach some of it, that the magnetic sometimes has an effect of short-term memory issues, which do return, but that the client might need a bit of time before they're really ready after 5 treatments to, let's say, get back to the classroom or get back to work. So I'm wondering if they're used, if it's still experimental, and if many of our psychiatric institutions are there yet, besides the medical, the other treatments.
So, of course, electroconvulsive therapy has been available for decades. That is available across Canada in most every hospital, certainly in teaching centres. Recurrent transcranial magnetic stimulation was approved for funding by the ministry now about 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't know why they did this, but they approved it only for people who had failed ECT. So right now, to get funding for it, you have to have ECT before, which is it's backwards. It's a great alternative because it doesn't require the same issues as ECT. But anyway, it is funded, and so however, across the province, there are only about 5 or 6 centres currently involved in the transcranial magnetic stimulation. TDCS, or transcranial direct current stimulation, or the TENS, the similar process of TENS, has not been approved for use, but because it is TENS, it's okay to use, and that's available. People can go online and order that. There are several vendors that provide it. It should be done with the monitoring of a physician, or at least someone with experience, but it's available widely. In terms of deep brain stimulation, it is only available right now in Ontario through protocols, through research protocols. But those research protocols are numerous and broad, and so it's not, I'm trying to say it's easy to get hold of, nor should it be, but it's not that hard to find a major centre that is involved. However, it's only the academic centres that are providing it. In the United States, if you want to go down to the Mayo Clinic for $15,000, you can pay and get it done. So in the United States, it's broadly available on a commercial basis. In terms of ablation, that is, it's called either capsulotomy or cingulotomy, the treatment I was talking about with focused ultrasound. That is available through a neurosurgeon if you want to have the old way of doing it, which is opening the skull and going in and cutting it virtually with a scalpel. That's been around for over 60 years. And that's available virtually anywhere there's a neurosurgeon. However, there are only 2 centres in Toronto that do it. One's at Toronto General, one's at Sunnybrook. And in terms of focused ultrasound, there are only 2 centres that do that as well, one at Sunnybrook, one at Toronto General. However, here's my overall statement. It is such an important new notion about the treatment of brain conditions, of mental illness. It is growing dramatically. It's growing in leaps and bounds, and the number of new centres coming online across Canada and the United States doing all those kinds of neuromodulation is mind-boggling. And so I would suspect that in the next 5 years, most major hospitals, whether academic or not, will offer an array of neuromodulation.
Thank you. We have a question back here.
How genetic is bipolar?
So I was going to use that slide tonight because it's such a great story. There's a gentleman, I won't describe in detail, but he is the guy who who discovered the genetic component of cystic fibrosis. He works at Sick Kids. In 1993, he came to meet with me and he said, the next big genetic illness is bipolar disorder. We are going to discover the gene for bipolar disorder. That was 1993, and we haven't got it yet. Now, that doesn't mean it's not. So, for example, if you take twins, monozygotic twins, identical twins, the concordance rate is 50%. So in the general population, it's, as I said, about 4.5% have bipolar disorder. In identical twins, it's 50%. If one person has bipolar disorder, there are 7 times, if a family member has bipolar disorder, it's 7 times more likely that their offspring will have bipolar disorder than the general population. So it's a familial disorder, and it's a genetic disorder for sure. Of all the major mental illnesses, it is the most genetically determined.
Yes, I was just wondering how you will choose the first 40 residents of Ellie's Place.
With great difficulty, we've been told we're going to have a waiting list of hundreds from early discussions with our colleagues in the community. We will have a very clear assessment form with admission criteria. We've developed it already based again on the Gold Farm and modifying it for Canada, for our criteria in Canada. And we're going to initially, on first come, first served basis, we'll be using the admission criteria and we'll be looking for those people that are most suited for our program. Nothing more concrete than that at this time. As we get closer, we'll probably become more concrete.
Okay, we have a question here.
Congratulations again to all of you for the great work you're doing. I notice in your brochure that you make reference to mental health and addiction treatment integrated into the programming. I haven't heard reference to the addiction component this evening. Could you please speak to that?
Certainly. The program is focused on mental illness, not on addictions. So the primary reason somebody would come to Ellie's Place is that they have a serious mental illness. But we mention addiction issues because it's very clear a high percentage of the individuals that are coming to us for their serious mental illness will have had at one time or another some addiction challenges or substance use challenges. So we're not going to ignore that. We'll certainly provide the support for that, but we're not primarily an addiction center or a mental illness center, but we will certainly provide support treatment around addiction issues if they have them, although part of the admission criteria is that they're not currently using the substance, and if they've had a serious addiction issue, that they've gone to a rehab program first before they would come to us.
Thank you.
Also building on the addiction component, I heard for the mental health that it's recovery-based, and I'm wondering, especially based off that last answer, that they can't come in when they're using. Are you an abstinence-only program or a harm reduction-based program?
We haven't gotten that far, but my sense is we would not be an abstinence program.
Sorry.
I can just talk about it. Well, assuming it's not funded by the province, each individual, what will the cost be to the individual?
At this point, because we have developed our initial operating budget, we're looking at probably a per diem of $500 a day. That would also cover the 12-month transition program. There wouldn't be additional fees. That would cover the 12-month transitional program afterwards.
And will that cover your annual operating costs?
Yes.
Is the literature review that you mentioned published somewhere?
No, it's not. It was privately done for us, but it certainly is accessible if you wanted a copy. There's nothing confidential about it.
The front? The wrong
While
shoes
you're
for this.
running, I'm just going to answer going back.
It's a YMCA. Why am I wearing these?
Going back to the fees, just to give you an idea, shortly after I was hired, we submitted a Freedom of Information request to the government, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, asking them how many individuals they sent to the U.S. for this type of service. Although they won't publish that they send people to the U.S., when push comes to shove, people who know how to lobby will get that service. Over a 3-year period, they spent $4.3 million in 50 Ontario residents, and they were paying an average per diem of $1,200 a day, U.S. No, that's Canadian, translated to Canadian, compared to our $500. So there's certainly a return on investment if we start spending those dollars here in Canada, not down in the States. Sorry.
You mentioned that in the transition period, strong family support is very needed. What happens if an individual does not have strong family support?
And that will be a reality at times. We also talked about peers and friends and helping them to develop other support networks in the community where they're living. That will be part of the transition program if they don't have the family support, and that will be a reality for some people.
One of the things I'd like to reiterate what Alice just said, those figures, I'd like them to sink in. 50 families were able to send their daughters and sons to the States. Government paid $1,241 a day. We're going to be $500 a day. Just wanted you for that to sink in.
If I could add something to that as well. I work with the Family Navigation Project. We had our booth out front here. And we help young people and the families to try and find resources for mental health and addictions. And I can tell you the other problem is it costs way more than $1,240 a day, because that's the actual cost to the program. Families have to travel, they have to have time off work, but more importantly, the transition back to the Canadian or Ontario environment is a major issue. We spend a lot of our time, our navigators, trying to put together programs for youth who are coming back, because the programs in the United States have no idea about our resources, they have no idea how our system works, and they say, yeah, go back and get a sober coach, sober living, go and get intensive outpatient treatment, and they'll list 5 things that are available in the United States if you pay for them. But even if you can pay for them, they're not available in Canada. So it's not just the $500 that you guys are going to be, or the $700 a day you're saving. There's many more costs to having someone leave our province for treatment.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to this panel. And before we go, one quick final thought, one takeaway that you want this audience to know from each one of you. One quick thought.
My thought is not so much of the treatment of bipolar disorder as I was talking about, is that there are no resources in our province for the kinds of folks that we're talking about treating here. There are several in the United States, but we just don't have them here, and it's a huge gap. When I met with the government recently, and they asked me where are the big gaps in the system, I actually said, and I wasn't talking about Eli's place, I was saying, for long-term residential treatment for people with serious mental illness. It just doesn't exist here. So this is a tremendous program, a tremendous opportunity for youth in our province.
Thank you. Annette?
I just wanted to sort of link up some of the things that Dr. Levitt said with what Ellie's place is going to be. You can fix the brain circuit, but you've probably got like 9 or 10 years of trauma of living with mental illness. And so you can fix the brain circuitry, but then you still have to heal the person. And you have to teach that person all the things that they didn't learn while they were really ill. And I think that's something that gets missed in the discussion between you go with medical treatment or non-medical treatment or psychotherapy versus psychiatry. And I think that there has to be a link. You can't just treat one facet of a person with serious mental illness. You have to treat the whole person. And you have to treat the trauma that comes from having lived with a mental illness. And I think you have to treat the person, you have to treat their family, it happens in a system, it has to be holistic. And I think for me, what I see in Ellie's place is that much broader picture than just this treatment or this specific treatment or transcranial magnetic stimulation, which I probably pronounced wrong again. But this is a whole package for a whole person. And I think for me, in my experience, that's what's been missing from the mental health system is I'm not a case, I'm a person. And I need a system to treat my system. And that needs to see me as a whole person. It needs to see Ellie as a whole person, and David and Deborah as whole people and whole families, or chosen families, or system of support. And for me, that's the takeaway that I want you to have, is that something like Ellie's Place is that connecting link and that treatment of the whole person.
Thank you. Deborah?
It's hard to follow that. Takeaway. Takeaway. We are not reinventing the wheel. These places resources exist, as we've mentioned. It's just time that it come to Canada. It is just ridiculous that we don't have these resources for our young people who need it. It is time to build Ellie's Place.
It's not if, it's when. And we're going to start offering hope to those who never thought hope was possible. And we're going to start saving lives. So thank you.
Thank you. On that note, thank you all. We have one more takeaway.
Thank you. One last takeaway. We need your help. We need to spread the word about Ellie's Place. If you haven't signed up for a newsletter, please go to our website and just sign up so you'll keep in touch with what's happening. Let your friends know about Ellie's Place. Encourage them to go to our website. Encourage them to sign up. We just need to spread the word and let people know that this new agency is coming. And so the more people that sign up and get our newsletter, the more we're going to spread the word. Thank you.
Speaking of spreading the word, you will all be getting a Seeds of Recovery Mother's Day initiative where you can donate online and come to the website. So please get that on the way out from the volunteers. We'd also like to thank you all for being here. So give yourselves a round of applause. We'd like to thank the community partners, the YMCA, FNP, MDAO, and all the volunteers who were on the committee who put this night together. Thank you very much to all of you. Before we leave you, the lyrics are behind me here, and with the permission of Stephen Page of the Bare Naked Ladies fame, his song, Looking for the Light, will now be played. Thank you all for being here.